Hello and welcome to B&E Now, a podcast about independent game development. With me today is George Hultgren. Hey, and this episode's special because you've been on the show before. I forgot what episode number it was.
I forget as well.
But we were talking about Wayward Terran Frontier, and you were launching a Kickstarter last we left you. So let's rewind a bit. What's happened since then? How did that Kickstarter go, first off?
Well, the Kickstarter went pretty well, considering that I wasn't, at the time, maybe as organized as I needed to be. It didn't, the Kickstarter did not succeed. We asked for 50 grand, and I say we, it was me at the time, it was just me. Mm-hmm. I asked for 50 grand, which is basically what I needed at the time, and I got 17. And I learned sort of the hard way exactly how hard it is to run a Kickstarter by yourself, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. What were you doing at like a day-to-day deal with that?
Well, so I don't know if it was a mistake or if it was a good idea that I just didn't have enough people to execute, but my idea was to launch a sort of a free version, a trial version of the game that you could play around with, that would sort of launch, around the same time as the Kickstarter with some new content. It was already out, but I put some new stuff on there, and then I was hoping that people would play around with it, and that would get them interested and get them to, check out the Kickstarter. But
so you were just relying on that conversion between demo players to Kickstarter.
Yeah, I wasn't relying on it so much as I thought it would be a huge asset, but it actually turned out to be a huge liability because there were some bugs in it, and I ended up having to spend a lot of time working on improving that code, which basically meant that my time was divided between, all the stuff that you have to do for a Kickstarter, which is you have to be constantly talking to the community, answering messages, and sending out press releases, doing publicity stuff, which...
Yeah, you pretty much can't develop your game and kickstart your game at the same time, or at least... If you're doing that, you're doing double full-time work.
Yeah, so I was already doing double full-time work with the publicity, and then with also trying to get all the bugs out of the game that people were looking at. But then on top of that, I was running a website, and some people had talked me into running forums, so I was running forums, and I was basically one person doing too many jobs, and or at least that's how it felt. And so the Kickstarter didn't work out. The timing of a number of things also wasn't perfect. So there were basically a whole slew of reasons, but the one reason that I know was not the reason it didn't work out was the game itself. I mean, people generally liked the game. It just, pretty much I did everything else wrong. It's kind of how I feel about it. Mm-hmm.
So you didn't give up. You didn't look at that and go, oh, well, moving on there. Well, so what happened next?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I was about ready to give up. I was kind of, low on funds, didn't really have, didn't have a way to keep going with the project, and was feeling kind of burnt out after the Kickstarter, and just kind of the prospect of, setting the project aside for a while and going out and getting a 9-to-5 job seemed like sort of almost a vacation from what I've been going through, so it was looking pretty nice. But I don't know. I'm not going to say unfortunately. It was actually very good. It was just maybe odd timing. Through the Kickstarter, I found an artist who made amazing artwork and was somehow like really fired up and passionate about the project, and he actually contacted me through Kickstarter when it was already pretty obvious that the project was going to fail. And so he approached me with the angle of, hey, let's work together on this, start over from scratch, and make the second Kickstarter a huge success.
What's his name?
His name is Jan, and he's actually overseas. I've been working with him basically since then, but we kind of started off from the very beginning arguing. I think it was interesting because I was we had this conversation. I'm just like, I don't know, man, I'm kind of burned out, and he's like, let's do another one, let's go right now. And I'm like, so we went back and forth, and basically he was just like, well, I'll just start making art and you'll see how great it is, and then you'll want to do the project again. And he was right.
Interesting. You were done. You were burnt out.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I got to put this down right now. He's like, no, this game has to live.
and as it turns out, he was right. And so we've been a two-person team ever since then, and I've been running on borrowed money, but we took the game and we responded to basically every piece of feedback that we got during the original Kickstarter. Stuff like people felt that there was a bit too much of an emphasis on multiplayer, which I agreed with, because I saw that it seemed like I was pitching a multiplayer game from what I had written, just like going back and rewriting what I had written, and I had always really meant for it to be more of a single-player adventure experience. But the pitch that I wrote and what I was selling, it really looked like I was just offering a multiplayer thing, and so for two reasons I decided the new one needs to be single player only. One, so there's no confusion that this really is meant to be a single player exploration adventure spaceship game, and two, because if I don't have to debug multiplayer, if I don't have to worry about that aspect of the code,
it reduces your scope by a lot.
Yeah, and
you can still design in multiplayer later. You can have the game in such a way that you're not going to shoot yourself in the foot if you want to spend the time to add it. But
yeah, the core architecture supports it. I know that because it has been multiplayer in the past. In the future, I can add multiplayer once it's ready, but we want to focus on making it actually fun first.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So, how's the game changed?
Well, visually, the changes are ridiculous. We basically had to go in and fight with XNA to get it to let us make our own shaders, because we wanted to do a whole bunch of fancy rendering stuff. We've got bump maps and emission maps, and so all the ships are shiny and they glow, and there's 3D lighting effects, and we, instead of just directly painting our ships now, we've got a big, long, complicated process that we start with a 3D model, and then we render to 2D, and then we hand paint details. And so everything, that just the quality of the backdrops, the quality of planets, the quality of everything just looks amazing. But it's running on the same system where you kind of have these deformable per pixel destruction of the ships. So we were able to just drop it right on the engine, and it still works the same, or better actually, since I've added some optimizations and features and debugged stuff. But
yeah, very cool. I saw it a week ago, and it was looking fantastic. It didn't look bad before, but it just way better.
Yeah,
definitely.
Well, when it was me being a solo developer, I kind of liked the idea of just, hey, let's have it be kind of pixely. To me, it's a game where your ships are top-down 2D spaceships, like other top-down 2D spaceship games, and I thought, well, I want them to have interiors, and I want them to be destructible. So, how do I do that? And there's a lot of ways to approach that problem, and sort of my solution was to make the pixel sort of the unit of the world. It can break off, it can be destroyed, it represents sort of the grid that's inside your ship, the tiles. And so for me, pixel art made sense because, A, as a solo programmer, it was easy to make, right? Yeah, we make that decision. I'm not embarrassed, but gotta optimize your process, and two, it just kind of made sense from a thematic perspective to me to have just pixels look like what they are. But Jan, it was very much like he had a vision of how he wanted it to look, and so he basically just started creating his vision, which was much higher fidelity. It doesn't look like an indie game to me anymore. When I look at my own product, it looks much shinier but it really is. It's a two-person team, so.
But you got more than just visual changes in the game.
Yes. So when I restarted development on it, most of what I was working on was implementing new graphics and fixing stuff. But since we were going in the direction of single player, I laid out a huge plan of exactly what I wanted to accomplish with single player. And a lot of it had already been on the list before. Some of it was already done, but I started just pounding out the details. And so we've got multiplayer. I said multiplayer. Sorry. We've got single player working to the point now where I've got this huge, infinite, persistent world with actually having stuff in it. I've taken almost all of, because before it was just sort of edit a ship, spawn the ship, blow up the ship sort of testing environment. I've taken all of that functionality and I've put it into sort of the player's home base, and I'm making this persistent world around that base for you to explore. So
you can get off your ship and explore these different home bases, planets, and even like explore procedurally generated asteroids.
Yeah, that was one of the new big things I did. So, well, actually, honestly, one of the biggest things was just putting terrain into the world. That wasn't even there before. But so, I've got a world full of these asteroids and really fancy collision. And I'm like, you know what? We need to be able to go inside these asteroids. And people have asked for space mining, so I created a device that will modify the asteroid, kind of let you attach an airlock to it. You can dock up your ship, and it generates caves and loot and ore on the inside of every asteroid. And there's millions of asteroids, and we plan to have some of them just sort of procedurally generated with like the typical stuff that you might find underground randomly, but then we're also going to hand create a whole bunch of cool stuff and like hiding it. I always liken it to Easter egg hunt. We're creating an Easter egg hunt now.
So how long have you been working together now on this, like approximately?
Well, I mean, literally since the end of the last Kickstarter. So it's not been a year now. It's been considerably less than a year, but it's been like, geez, how long has it been? You lose count. I've been working more, like I've been putting more energy into it since the Kickstarter than I was before the Kickstarter. Like I lose track of time.
So what's it like reinvesting in a project that you've already kind of reached that breaking point of this isn't going to work, I need to move on to something else? Kind of like you definitely hit that point where you're just, even if the project's good, you felt like you were done with it, but now you've gone back and reinvested more. Is that because you feel even better about it, or is it just that you want to get it done as quickly as possible, or what?
Well, it was kind of a slow transition. It wasn't instant. Like, it wasn't like, okay, we're going to do this, and suddenly I like it again. There was a long period where just, working on the project was hard. Like, you go and you look at it and you just see all those things you messed up, and it drains your energy, and you're just like, oh, I don't want to work on that today. That bug that caused people to be upset when I was trying to get it funded, I'll fix that later sort of situation. But it really helps. It really helped to have this other person that had all of the enthusiasm that I didn't, and he didn't care. I'd be dragging my feet, and then some new sprites would come in, and they were the coolest thing ever. They looked amazing, and okay, well, so for a long period, instead of working on like core mechanics in the engine, I was just implementing art, which was easy for me because it was a new thing.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of kept my mind off of that. But the more I did that, the more excited I got about it, and then I just got back into it.
It reinvigorated you in the game. You're like, hey, this does look really cool now. This is going to be a good idea.
Yeah, it really did. So
now what's your plan with it? What are you guys going to do?
Well, we're going back to Kickstarter, which wasn't my idea, it was his, and I'm on board now, but I was reluctant at first, as you can imagine.
So why Kickstarter? I mean, you've done Kickstarter before, but it doesn't necessarily mean you can't, but why go back?
Because obviously I've had to change my opinion of why people go to Kickstarter a little bit, because my feelings about it have changed a bit, but it really is still crowdfunding, whether you get a lot of money out of it, whether it's successful or not. It's a really good way to reach people that don't know about your project. And one of the things that makes me feel a lot better about the Kickstarter is that this time when we go back, I don't have to ask for as much money because we have the art covered. Like last time, I think, more than a third, like half of my budget.
Yeah, you have more of the game polished. You're reducing scope by cutting out multiplayer.
Yeah.
And have an artist who's working on percentage.
Yeah, rev share. So we don't have that huge upfront cost of, okay, we're going to have to pay someone per sprite. We have basically a rev share agreement which allows us to survive on top ramen until we can actually sell it and make it profitable.
In a sense, you've already put a lot of your own money into the project just because of the time it has passed. You've been self-funding.
Yes, more than all of it, in fact.
So is there more of a sense of this is all or nothing now, we need to ask for more?
I think that I think that we could ask for more. I think our presentation is going to be a lot better this time. But I really don't. I mean, we're giving out the game as a backer reward. That's like when we're, if you're backing us, you're getting a copy of the game. So it's kind of like a pre-order, so we don't have to ask for more. It'll be there. We're gonna make it. You'll be able to buy it. I would prefer to honestly go to Kickstarter and ask for what we actually need. And part of the reason is because it's very frustrating for me to see Kickstarter projects that just seem like there's some dishonesty behind them. When I see those, and especially when I see them really successful, it bothers me, and I kind of don't want to be that guy.
So how much are you asking for this time?
We're only asking for $20,000.
I mean, even with like Kickstarter fees and all that stuff,
and here's the reason why. The reason we're only asking for $20,000 is because we have yet another thing we have this time that we didn't have last time, which is we have our own store, and that we've built on Windows. Well, I say we've built. It's been a group effort, but I built it on Windows Azure. I built all the back end myself, and Jan built the front end and the art. It looks amazing, our website, but we haven't released or unveiled the store yet, but the game is distributed through our store with automatic updates. So, and there can be different distributions based on what you buy on the store. So we're going to open the store and launch all of the same rewards on both Kickstarter and the store at the same time. And so
these are all in-game reward type stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty much all in-game reward type stuff. I mean, since the game is going to allow us to offer things like a unique ship variant that is Kickstarter exclusive, and those can be digitally distributed through our store. And so pretty much after the Kickstarter, anyone who got those rewards, we're just going to enter that information into the store, and it'll be sent out to them automatically.
So what else is going to be available for me to purchase in the store in the final game? Just different ship skins, or will it be functionality, or what?
Well, initially, all we're going to have in the store, is just pre-orders of the game. So we're gonna mirror all of the backer rewards. We have a bunch of different tiers, including some special services that are going to be kind of exclusive during the campaign, like the option to have us create your vision of a spaceship, to like custom create a spaceship from your sort of sketch. We'll go through our whole art creation process with the 3D and the rendering and the painting for your design.
Nice.
Yeah, and so we're going to do that during the Kickstarter, and those rewards are going to also exist in the store. But then after the Kickstarter period, the plan is to just continue selling the game through the store as a pre-order, and the other thing is we're a lot closer to having the single player ready this time. I'm really hoping that immediately after the Kickstarter ends, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sit down, and I'm not going to leave my room until that damn single player is so debugged that I can just start giving it to the backers and let them play around with it. But it's already ready enough that I can shoot video of gameplay. I had a really awkward YouTube video recently where I did some space piracy, and you can see like boarding ships and finding loot and that sort of thing.
Cool. So how long do you think it's going to take you to wrap up the game? Like, assuming you get, a minimum $20,000 and not like $100,000 where you could hire artists to help you and programmers, how long do you think it's going to take you to finish the game?
So it's honestly probably going to be more than a year before it's version 1.0. But that's because it's one of these games where you have a core functionality, which is a home space station, character progression, and going out and exploring. And, one of the most exciting milestones for me was just getting save game states, getting, world, the NPCs moving around the world, and getting it to the point where like the core game actually works, and all I have to do is add in content. And now it's just about making sure that there's enough content, and we want to add a ton of content. We want to have, secret crystal fortresses that you can explore, and space stations with NPCs trading, and that you can walk inside and go up and actually talk to the NPC guys and buy stuff from them. We want to have trade convoys and battles between NPCs and factions that go out and do mining operations that you can mess with. Like, we want to have all of that stuff, and it's going to take a while to make. So the Kickstarter is going to fund, if it's just barely funded, it'll fund about a year. But I think the game is a very good format for potential sort of early release funding format in addition to Kickstarter.
1.0 is a relative thing, right?
Exactly.
It's like Minecraft's 1.0 was well after it was super, super popular.
Yeah, and then, same thing with Minecraft, Terraria. They just kept, those are like, I a lot of the things in my game I like to think of Terraria in a design sense, and one huge aspect of that is that I also have to think about the fact that after Terraria came out, there has been like 8 expansions now. I'm exaggerating, but yeah, just adding content is...
Yes, that's why you're having the store, so that you have the built-in system to deliver constant new content updates.
Yeah, I had to have automatic updates. I mean, if I had to expect people to re-download the game every single time I changed something, people wouldn't be willing to do it.
Yeah, it makes sense. So how much are you charging for the game, for backing it?
So there's going to be a lot of backer tiers, including sort of an early access tier that'll be sort of cheaper than, get the game at a discount. But like an early bird special, whatever, it's a marketing gimmick. But we're basically going for the standard, what I think is kind of standard for a fancy indie game of $20.
And have you thought about like how much? What brought you to that price? Like, okay, what if it's 15? What if it's 25? What if it's 40?
Comparing other independent and semi-independent games of similar scope,
Are you comparing ones on the store or ones that are Kickstarter backing? Because traditionally, Kickstarter backers are willing to pay more.
Oh, and we're giving you options to pay more on the Kickstarter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course, people will pay more than just the game, right? But if a game sold for $15 on Kickstarter, it wouldn't be uncommon that it didn't sell very well until it will say $10 on Steam or wherever it happens to be distributed then.
Yeah.
So what made you bring it to the $20 price point? Is that based on what's currently in the market or what people were asking for in Kickstarter projects of similar type?
It's based on what's currently in the market.
Okay.
Yeah. It's based on other games that I saw of scope and said that were $20 basically. I think that's about a fair price point for this as well, considering how much work has gone into it, and considering all the various middlemen and costs.
Is that what you charged before in the last Kickstarter?
Yeah, I think I've always sort of imagined that price bracket as the final bracket, and part of the reason that when we create these price points, I'd like to think everyone knows that probably people are going to buy their game on sale at some point, and I'm fully aware of that. So there'll probably be sales for the game where you'll be able to get it for less. But
sales
than
are well in the future. We're
exactly,
not even talking about 1.0 yet.
Yeah, my brain will explode if I try to think that far in the future right now. I got so much in my mind, so.
But you're not set that it will never be sold for less than that kind of thing.
No.
Yeah, that makes sense. You got to be flexible to your pricing, but you definitely have to pick something for what's going to start at, what it's going to be at for the, early access first.
Yeah.
First people. What do you call it? Early adopters. That's what word I was looking for.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, what's your plan for this Kickstarter? Like, how are you going to start marketing? How are you going to get in front of people?
So I've been doing I've learned how to use Twitter. I know it's amazing. I'm a programmer and I can do publicity. It's weird for me, but we've made a very big presentation on our website of just overhauling how everything looks, so that it's sort of a much more attractive presentation, which allows us to go out and just tell everyone. And I've been doing a lot of stuff on Twitter and, the usual press releases, contacting people in the indie game media. it's never been my strongest suit. But I'm better at it this time than I was last time, and it really helps having someone who can make amazing, awesome art assets for you.
Is Jen also going to be helping with the promotion?
Oh yeah.
So just having two people like sending emails should help a lot.
It's 100% different. It's.
Do you have any stunts planned or any kind of big events or countdowns or things you're going to do, or are you just focused on reaching out and talking to as many people as possible?
So we are announcing things in stages. The first stage was kind of the smallest stage, which was I updated the game's launcher. Not the launch. The launcher's already been updated, but the launcher for a very long time up until just recently was distributing still the old version of the game ever since the previous Kickstarter, because while we were rebuilding the entire project from scratch, we weren't sure if we were still going to do sort of the free version and the paid version. Since it was all single player now, is that a good idea? Like, we had to get our stuff together, and we came to some decisions and got not all the bugs out, but sort of got it to the point where I was like, you know what, we need to release the free editor again. And so that was our first big announcement, and I pushed out the new version, and I've already started pushing updates to that, and that's gotten people sort of talking about it on the forums again. And it's been nice to sort of go around and talk to people who've tried it. And
because you already have an existing community in the pre-first Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Has that community still been active, or has it kind of died off?
Oh, it's kind of fun to see their reactions. Sometimes they come back, and sometimes I'll get messages from them saying, "Oh, hey, I came back and looked, and there's actually new stuff here. Like, what's going on? Is this back from the dead?" I get that response sometimes.
Have you told them that there's going to be a Kickstarter yet? Or are you going to try and
Actually, I've hinted at a Kickstarter, but I would say this is probably the first official announcement that it's going to happen.
Interesting. Well, as of you talking to me.
Yeah,
right?
as of this, this pre-recording is not I guess by the time this comes out, people will have heard of it. But yeah, I haven't been going around telling people, other than like my parents.
So you think that surprise is going to be better than building up the hype of like, hey, everyone, go start funding it on X date?
No, and in fact, that's pretty much what we've been doing. We haven't announced the Kickstarter because we hadn't settled on a date until basically an argument that we were having yesterday, and so it's that's the stage we're in right now, which is building hype around the upcoming Kickstarter, but the first stage was very much not. I didn't want to come back and say, hey, remember that thing you haven't heard of since the failed Kickstarter? It's suddenly back and is already doing another Kickstarter. I wanted to do it in stages. Like, hey, check it out. There's a new version of the launcher. There's a bunch of cool stuff in the launcher. Like, it's not just the old stuff. Like, I've this really awesome graphic overlay that shows all the power connections and that I'm really proud of. And
even just showing off the new art is going to be like fundamentally different for a lot of people.
Yeah, that helps a lot. So doing it in stages, first trying to get people to notice the project again, and then kind of starting, maybe not today, maybe later this afternoon, but started telling people, hey, we're going to be doing this crowdfunding initiative. Like, this is happening. It's coming up, and then the next big announcement is the opening of the store. And we're going to be, publishing some press about that, try to get people to notice the store. And the reason that's nice is because once the store is actually live and we can tell people to go to look at it and to register there, then I can start like getting into contact with YouTubers, because, that's how, if anyone's going to get a pre-access copy of the game, they're going to get it through the store. So I have to have the store running. Mm-hmm. So. And
you also get kind of an idea of how many people are still active in your community.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, I got this many conversion signups into this store.
Yeah. Step one: go get all of the old community people back, get them to notice that we exist again, and get them excited.
So are we talking about like days, weeks, like?
Well,
it's probably an answer known more to the people by the time they're listening to this.
Yeah. So I guess by the time they're listening to this, it hopefully will you will have already heard about it, or people will have already heard about it. But it's by the time people hear this recording, it should already be in full full steam. But for a week, we've been sort of slowly seeding out information, and for the next week, we're going to be. So yeah, I guess that's 2 weeks, and then The Kickstarter is going to launch maybe half a week after that, and we're going to be starting a Greenlight campaign at the same time.
Awesome. And all those links are going to be located in the show notes before. So if you're just hearing of the Kickstarter, you can go down there, find a link, sign up for the store. Hopefully that's up. Should be.
And the other nice thing will be having the Greenlight and the Kickstarter happen at the same time. That was one of the things I messed up last time.
A lot of people have done that, and that it makes sense. You get that instant conversion ratio.
I mean, you really want to reach critical mass with a Kickstarter. You want people talking about it, and if you do the Greenlight and the Kickstarter at 2 separate times, then you drop off the front page of Steam while your Kickstarter is launching.
So you think that doing Steam is going to be better at launch rather than waiting, even if you want to convert people into your own digital storefront?
I do want to convert people into my own digital storefront. I have mixed feelings about Steam, but all of the customers are there, and I mean, let's be honest, Greenlight it's a social voting platform. It's a way of saying, look, here's our offering. Do you want it on Steam or not? And the customers go on there and they tell Valve, hey, we want this on Steam. And
yeah, I guess if you get funded but you don't get greenlit, you're like, well, I didn't get enough people on Steam, so I won't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, if you get greenlit but then you don't have a game, I don't think they send anyone with suits to your place to beat you up. I mean, we're not...
Yeah, that's true. That would be an interesting situation where it's successful on greenlit, but you wouldn't get funding. But let's hope that's not the case. Do you have any stretch goals in mind? Because you're only asking for 20,000, so that seems like you can probably get more than that.
I think I might. We think we will probably get more than 20. I mean, we don't want to. I don't want to jinx myself. I'm not.
You're okay with just 20. 20 has to be the minimum acceptable number.
Yeah.
What would you do if you got 30, 40, 60?
Oh, we have some cool things planned. Well, for one, I keep hearing about how Jen keeps telling me we have to make spinal mounts. We have to make spinal mounts. We have to make really, really huge guns.
Spinal mounts? What is a spinal mount?
Well, actually, it fits into a category of modules that we've been wanting to make that are sort of unique to a ship in that they're so huge you can't really fit them on any other ship. And they have sort of a custom mega animation. So, we're talking like Death Star laser sort of thing here where the whole ship does something really cool. And that's what we see as a spinal mount. A spinal mount, I think, is sort of a generic sci-fi term, but really what we mean is just huge, ridiculous weapons. Mm-hmm. And since we have all the weapons in our game split into different size categories, the spinal mounts would then be easily the biggest, by far, much bigger than stuff that we haven't even implemented yet.
What about the balance or something like that?
Well, the cool thing about doing a single-player exploration-based RPG is that you don't really need balance; you just need progression. And there's balance in terms of different varieties of things. I mean, you have energy weapons versus projectile weapons versus beam weapons, and those are balanced between each other. But just like getting a more powerful sword, you toss out the last one. It is acceptable in an RPG to have progression where you just end up at the late game having a really, because that's what people want. We're like, you don't want to start the game with the biggest, most awesome gun ever. You just get more powerful as time goes on.
Makes sense. I encourage everyone to go check out the new Kickstarter, a new video, and see just how the games progress. I think it's really interesting just to analyze. All right, just because your Kickstarter fails doesn't mean you should give up on a game. A lot of people give up too soon on good ideas. So it's a really good story to say, hey, I've had the ability to keep working on this. I've had the ability to prove it. And that, deserves a ton of respect right there, because it's not easy to, self-fund it and keep working on something, especially when you've gone through that, low point of having to have the failed Kickstarter. So congrats to that, first off.
Cool, thanks.
But as I always like to wrap up shows talking about games.
Okay.
So I'm going to switch to that note. I've been playing Duet. Have you played that yet?
I haven't played Duet, no.
It's kind of like a shmup, but it's not a shmup at all.
Huh.
It's a dodge things scrolling game where, there's objects going down and you have to move to dodge them. But unlike your traditional shoot 'em up type game, you have 2 different dots and it's a circle, and when you move, they move in a circle at the same time, and you have to not let either of the dots hit any of the objects.
That's the duet between the 2 points.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
And it's just this weird dance that you do because the only thing you can do is rotate left or rotate right. So like you spin left halfway and then spin right halfway, and it paces itself really well where it keeps giving you challenges and has this little bit of text in between the levels. And I would describe it as a peaceful experience, if anything, for the fact that actually playing it is nothing but frustration. Like, oh no, I totally got this. But like frustration in that good addictive way where it's like, I hate this. I just want to play another level. I just want to play another level. I can't believe I'm not getting this. I'm going to quit after this time. I'm going to quit after this time. I'm going to quit after the next time.
I think that a game really can frustrate you without making you hate the game. In fact, I think quite the opposite. It's, sometimes games which piss you off simulate a little something special about real life in doing so, that allows them to be more satisfying when you actually do accomplish something.
Yeah, and it's just a really fine balance towards upsetting the player and like having that engagement. And I think bottom line it comes down to is communication, clearly what went wrong.
Yeah.
I know why I messed up. It's instantly obvious to me. I didn't move soon enough. I could have twisted this other way. I'm never lost in a situation like, well, there's no way I could have gotten out of that bullet hell kind of thing.
But even if you were just unlucky, so long as well, maybe next time I will be lucky.
Well, that's actually one of the things because there's no luck in it. It's like every time it's the same pattern. And the objects spin at the same rate. So you get kind of this, like, as I said, it's meditative, where you get in this groove where you have to go left and right at the same time, and then you keep repeating it, and then right when you reach the end of a checkpoint, you mess up, and you have to do the whole thing over again.
Well, when you asked about what games you've been, or when you mentioned what games you have been playing, I thought about the game I've been playing, which is very much luck-based.
Yeah.
I've been playing a lot of Risk of Rain lately. I like it. It's just casual loot grinder, but and like I was saying, you always lose. Like most of the time, you're gonna lose because it's just so hard, and there's that luck element of it's luck of the draw, and every time you play through, but something about it's just satisfying. And
yeah, it's a weird meditative experience, like doing something just as a grindy feel to it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because as I get older, I recognize that. I'm more interested in shallower games just because my brain is already committed to thinking about other things.
I mean, I don't know if it's just that, because I feel like I was interested in shallower games as a kid. I just didn't want to admit it to myself, right? Like, a game is good because it's got complexity, and, oh, look at all of this. And then even, games like Pokemon are kind of designed around, like, look how much depth there is, but
Yeah.
I mean, there's depth in Pokemon, but what people point to the depth is often just point to the complexity of Pokemon. It's really not why I play it. Like, I don't play Pokemon because of the shinies or getting the right stats and breeding. It's there for those players, and what makes it great is that, people who like that get that. But it's not. It's having
has
that,
a sort of an atmosphere to it.
Yeah, like having that a simple game that's just, hey, go off and repeat this action 100 times.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what MMOs are about, right? This is what people are always trying to copy from EverQuest. And, very few games can do it right, but it's just that what the EverQuest tapped into was people's sense of wanting to just repeat the same thing with a community around them, supporting the idea of, let's all log on at 7 o'clock tonight and just raise our number by 1.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess EverQuest can't be credited with sole credit. There's games before it, too, right?
Yeah.
But it's I don't know. I'm a big advocate of grind, which may or may not be a popular stance. I'm not sure.
It definitely has some weird grasp on some form of human animal instinct that, like, I don't know why I really just am so infatuated with slowly increasing numbers and bars that grow a little bit to the right. But I definitely notice that is the case.
Taps right into the pleasure cell, right?
Yeah, it's the lizard brain.
Well, I do that, and I don't smoke cigarettes, so I think I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
The beginning smokers out there feel bad, but my habit is probably going to be more healthy for me in the long run.
Oh, they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, so if you want to find more past episodes, including the original interview. If you didn't listen to that, you can go to beindynow.com. If you want to find more about me, go to my blog, tobiahmarks.com. Where can we find more about Wayward Terran Frontier?
So same place it was before, www.wtfrontier.com. And our store, which is going to be opening soon, can just be accessed through there, but it's just store.wtfrontier.com.
Awesome. Thanks for coming back on the show. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And for everyone else out there, go out and make some games.